Welcome everyone to the next performance clinic. Today the topic is Dynatrace and ServiceNow Refresher, how to automatically remediate service incidents with ITOM. I'm very glad that I found two excellent guests again, Wolfgang Beer, Technical Product Manager, and Jay, Enterprise Solutions Architect. Guys, I know we've been working together for a while, especially with Wolfgang. The two of us, we've worked closely because we're in the same engineering lab. But maybe, Wolfgang, could you give a quick introduction on who you are and what your role is within Dynatrace?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Wolfgang Beer. Thanks, Andy, for inviting us. My role at Dynatrace is a technical product manager, and I'm responsible for the Davis AI engine. So whenever Dynatrace reports a problem or an event, sends it to ServiceNow, for example, then my engineering team is responsible for that. So I'm probably the problem maker at Dynatrace.
In a good way, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So that means, yeah, and also for folks, what I really like about what you guys are doing, and especially you, because you're putting out a lot of great blog posts explaining how the Dynatrace AI actually works, how the baselining works, how the anomaly detection works. You also have a great GitHub repo out on GitHub with a lot of examples around the APIs. So folks, if anybody that is listening in wants to know more about the AI, the anomaly detection, the API, check out what Wolfgang has been doing. Now to Jay. Jay, can you also give us a quick introduction to yourself and your role within Dynatrace?
Sure. Hi, Andy. Thanks again for inviting us on this performance clinic. So I am an enterprise solutions architect. I mainly work in the extensions team. So we built out extensions, anything which is not out of the box from Dynatrace, we build that. I am responsible for the ServiceNow Dynatrace integration. So I build out the store app, any sort of future roadmap, all that stuff, is what I decide what to actually include in the app in the future. And I'll go more once we deep dive into the ITOM module today. But thanks again. Yeah, that's my role.
Perfect. Perfect. Before we get started, I got some feedback from the audience about some background music that you still hear. I'm not sure if this is, we don't hear it here as the presenters. And I want to make sure that you guys, that everybody can hear us correctly. So if it seems some folks get the background music, and which is something obviously that we don't want. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything I can do on my side to make this go away, but I fear there's no option here. I do hope. Okay, it seems this is just something for a couple of users because others just posted in, they can hear everything. So I think we're clear to go. So folks, Wolfgang, especially, I want to hand it over to you now to kick it off. So please give us an update on the Dynatrace and ServiceNow refresher. And I know we have a combination of slides and then live demo. And as I said, folks, if you have questions out there, put them into the Q&A feature, and I will throw them over if appropriate during the presentation. Otherwise, we'll do it at the very end. Take it away.
Okay, so hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to give you a Dynatrace and ServiceNow integration refresher. As far as I remember, I did a performance clinic years back, I would say. So there were a lot of enhancements and changes. And recently, I also got the feedback, especially after our Perform conference in February, that we should highlight also the newly introduced features on the ServiceNow ITOM side, which we did with this webinar today. And so you can look forward to the topic where we specifically focus on how to automatically remediate a service incidents with using ServiceNow ITOM. And with that, I would like to jump into three main requirements, and those are really the driving requirements through the eyes of you guys, because Jay and I are doing a lot of customer and user calls over the years, and we got a lot of feedback on why the integration between ServiceNow and Dynatrace is of such criticality for them. And first of all, what we hear is that ServiceNow is essential to break up enterprise silos, so to get a full visibility into all the workflows, in all the responsibilities across large-scale enterprises. So it's not only about CMDB, it's about all the workflows, all the workflows human beings and technical parts within the ITIL framework are responsible for, and how to map the responsibilities. And of course, that is also necessary when we speak about anomalies and problems that Dynatrace detects in real time. So to quickly find out who is responsible, who should handle an incident, and how you can remediate such incidences. A second topic is that becomes more and more pressing, I would say, which is that large customers that are, I would say, driving huge infrastructures, service infrastructures, that successfully performed the traversion to cloud infrastructure, of course have the necessity to see the big picture of their infrastructure and to map out the service infrastructure and what is going on in that kind of infrastructure. And that, of course, in real time. And Dynatrace is perfectly able to provide that kind of information, but we have to do a good job of mapping that kind of information into ServiceNow so that it's seamlessly bundled and integrated into the workflows that you have in place in your enterprise. And last but not least, of course, also to manage change within your service infrastructure and to manage that change towards automation. So especially in the current situation with the coronavirus, we see that the ops teams are, of course, in grief of a higher level of automation in order to handle all that incoming traffic and that service stress, I would say. And automation can help handle that. And putting ServiceNow together with Dynatrace is, of course, a good start to reach a higher level of automation here. But let's look into the details, and I'm always showing that slide here, taken from the ServiceNow platform. And what you can see here is that the ServiceNow platform is huge. So simple said, there are certain essential core components, and then a lot of different solutions and modules are built on top. And of course, Dynatrace is not capable of integrating in each individual element of this huge platform. And so we selected very essential and key areas where we think that the Dynatrace integration makes most sense here, which is on the left bottom area. You can see the IT operations management, the ITOM part, where of course our main effort of integration goes into that area. So that also means that Dynatrace seamlessly supports the integration into the event management system to send in anomalies that Dynatrace detects, to integrate with the operational intelligence module, and Jay will then show how all those different modules look in reality, and where Dynatrace can be used as first-class data source here in order to fill your information need in real time here. Of course, we also have an integration with the traditional IT service management part, where we can create tickets automatically. But I think the primary driver of our integration is clearly the IT operations management module that is advertised from ServiceNow, also in terms of reaching a higher level of automation and to drive your automation needs here. But now let's jump into the details, what we are really integrating with. On the one hand, I already mentioned that we try to synchronize the real-time topological information that our one agents collect with a CMDB that ServiceNow operates as one of the core modules here. And there are two essential parts, I already mentioned that, which is IT service management as such in order to create incidences, to track change management, and to track the release management of services. And on the other hand, the IT operations management module that comes with the discovery of CIs, with the event management module, with service mapping and orchestration, and with the integration hub as such. And we will see today how we integrate with the service or the flow designer in order to auto-remediate a Dynatrace detected service incidents. In order to highlight the importance here, I would like to cite Jonathan Hayes here from Experian, when he talked at our Perform conference this year. And what he said is that Experian chose ServiceNow along with Dynatrace as two essential core platforms where they are operating their IT service management strategy on top. And what he said is that ServiceNow and Dynatrace meet here, where Dynatrace provides the real-time sense of information and context. It detects intelligently and correlates intelligently incidences. It hands it over here, and here's the point where ServiceNow and Dynatrace meet, where ServiceNow provides the intelligence on top of the ITOM module. And the ACT part here is clearly on the ServiceNow side, where ServiceNow and orchestration framework, as well as remediation workflows, handle the incidences that were detected by Dynatrace and trigger the respective workflows here. So again, Dynatrace detects an issue, identifies root cause based on code level information that the one agents detect. Dynatrace follows those transactions in order to combine all the CIs that are relevant for a complex situation. It hands over all the necessary information to ServiceNow. It delivers the individual events and individual mappings of CIs to the event management system, where the ITOM part takes over. It generates a ticket in ITSM based on the logic that you have in your ITOM module. And all the necessary workflows are started, and probably an automated remediation workflow is already kicked, and an auto remediation action can be triggered in order to fix the problem quicker than a manual interaction could. What is important here is that with the ServiceNow side, you have all the possibilities in place that you can send back information to Dynatrace, either for change that happened or responsibilities. So you can implement bidirectional data flows in order to help your ops teams to seamlessly bind those two worlds.
Hey, Wolfgang, if I can quickly interrupt you because questions are just coming in, and I thought one of them would fit perfectly for the previous slide. If you could just move back one slide. The question was, and I think you explained it, but what type of events is Dynatrace sending over to ServiceNow? Is it a constant flow of events that Dynatrace is monitoring, for instance, when we detect a new service, when there's a violation of an individual metric, or is it only when there's problems that Dynatrace detects? So what type of events are flowing over? That was the question.
All types of events that Dynatrace identifies in cause of a problem. So all the individual raw events that Dynatrace Davis correlates and groups into a problem that you see in the Dynatrace UI are sent over to ServiceNow. Reason why we are sending the individual events with a hint to the or a reference to the overall incident is that we need that binding to react individually on the individual CIs, as there could be hundreds of individual events within a large-scale incident, for example.
Perfect. Thank you.
So now I would like to explain a bit what we are showing today, and then I will jump into the live demo. So today's demo will show how Dynatrace monitors a very simple service that is written in Go, how we automatically detect the service slowdown and send the individual events to the ServiceNow ITOM system, and how an alert rule triggers a remediation flow, and how that remediation flow on the ServiceNow ITOM side automatically remediates the broken service. That's the flow. And now I would like to switch over to show you part of the live demo in Dynatrace. So you see here, we already got an open problem here. So that's part of the flow here. You see, we have a problem detected in a service called Product Details Service. Dynatrace detects the problem as such. It shows the root cause already, and with a drill down to the respective code level analysis, which gives you a hint that the slowdown is clearly located in the service execution here, where you can see for your dev environment or developers, you can go into the code level in order to see where the hotspots of the execution lies. And you can clearly see that in our demo here, it's the sleep method that artificially slows down the service itself. So it's a demo service, of course, but nevertheless, you see the idea here. If I go to the service itself, you see that we have, let me select a different time frame here. We have the spike here. Dynatrace detected that.
Wolfgang, can I quickly interrupt you because some people are just seeing the live demo screen from the slides. Folks, you should have in the On24 control panel an option to switch between slides and actually the live view that Wolfgang is sharing from his laptop. So I do hope that folks, you can find that view. So there should be an option to switch between different views. One of them should be called the audience view, and that should show you currently a Dynatrace UI saying product details services. So folks that have just posted that they cannot see the demo, if one of you could just confirm, they need to go to Jim Wilson. They need to go to media option, and then you can switch over. So that's awesome. So you can switch between views. Everything is good for me. Okay, so it's called the media player or media option, and you can switch between the different media streams. Thanks, Wolfgang, for letting you interrupt. But I wanted to make sure that all people are seeing it.
Sure, all right. No problem at all. Reason, you see an interesting spike here with a problem detected, and then another spike that will lead to another problem here. reason for that is the funny coincidence that our predefined remediation action already was executed. Jay will then show how that works out, and it immediately remediates the problem itself. So the problem closed immediately after 5 minutes here. But let's look a bit about how that service looks like in Dynatrace. And I will show the service here that is running on a Golang process, running on a host. You will see the same topology then in ServiceNow, synchronized by our integration. And that service here shows a problem here that is caused by a slowdown on the service execution itself. So last thing that I will show before I hand over to Jay is the integration itself. So in order to send over that kind of information to ServiceNow, all you have to do is to set up the ServiceNow integration here and enable the ITOM and ITSM integration here and enter your ServiceNow credentials here. I already set it up here. You can see that here. And that is the reason why Jay can now take over and show how that auto-remediation is triggered on the ServiceNow side.
Sure.
Jay,
thanks a lot. Yeah, I'll just take over. Give me a minute. Let me share my screen.
And while Jay, while you're getting ready, just a reminder, feel free to ask questions. I'll try to moderate them as they come in, also giving some answers already. Some I will push over to Jay as he's presenting. Some will keep until the end, but be reminded that your questions are not unheard of. So it's like, they are taking care of it.
Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, it's coming through. It's coming through now. We now see your ServiceNow screen.
Cool. Okay. So I will jump into what Wolfgang just showed. This is what Wolfgang left at when he was, when there was a problem raised against the product details service. This is the impacted CI. While we come on the ServiceNow side, I'm just going to show you the classic event management dashboard view, which most of you are aware of. And that would show you these two alerts down here, which is basically the events which are generated out of this specific problem. But I would jump into a specific operator workspace, which is quite convenient if you haven't used it in ServiceNow, to kind of jump into the whole details about a specific event or an alert coming in. So in this case, we saw that the product details service was the impacted CI. So when I go in here, you can already see it's changed since it's a minor severity alert. It's kind of like yellow. You can go in and check the service details. So once you get into the service details, you should be able to see all the details regarding that specific product details service. Now, this is all this data has already been through the CMDB integration. So we have a CMDB integration which is built on the background, which is a scheduled job which runs on the background every 10 minutes and pulls in all the entities from Dynatrace. In this case, specifically the services, the hosts. So if I go into the app, you can see this is a Dynatrace app which you will see from the store. You have the host, the process groups, the services, and the applications which get pulled in currently from the new Orlando release. Going back on that, in this specific context, when we see an alert here, which has been generated, right? I can go into this alert. When I click on this alert, it opens up the actual alert where I can actually see more details on what is that Dynatrace is sending across. You can see there's a service method slowdown as a description. You can see there's a related incident which was open. So if I open this record here, you should be able to see the incident which was created as a part of that problem. So this is the incident which is created within ServiceNow. If I go into the classic view, you can see more details, but I'll do that later. But for now, I'll focus on the alert, right? I mean, this is the alert. You can go and see the parent alert. You can see when was it started, the generation time. It started around 3:59. You can see more information on the priority breakdown, which is what ServiceNow generates, intelligently on the background based on the business service, the severity, the CI type. And these are the additional information. Now, this is something which is passed across from Dynatrace. So you can see the correlation ID, which is the entity ID or a unique value, which we identify this service here is, which is product details service. We also have more information on the severity level in Dynatrace. We have the management zone information. For those of you who have used Dynatrace, management zones are more like logical separations within Dynatrace, where you can distinguish them based on the management zone, any CIs or the host or the process groups which are belonging to a certain management zone. And you can also see the problem description as is in Dynatrace. With the problem ID. Now, the problem ID is a very important field or attribute within here, because the way we sort of correlate the alerts, we use problem ID to correlate them. And we have an alert correlation rule. If you're in the newer version of the app, you'll be able to see all that actually correlated with the alert correlation rule. And also the tags. Now, this is an important feature, which is quite important in the sense that it can be used in various ways. One of the major use cases of this is actually to assign groups in case if you want to have assignment groups already in Dynatrace. So you can tag the assignment group within Dynatrace, and actually you can use this information across in ServiceNow to actually assign the group for the specific incident which comes across. Or if you're just using ITOM, you can use that as one of the recognition or identifying factors to actually assign or open an incident and assign it to a specific group within your organization, so it can be taken care of immediately. Also, you can see here is there's the event which came in, right? I mean, this is the event which actually generates the alert. So I'll just open the event, which has got all the description which also the alert has, which, as I showed you just now, the additional information and all this stuff, all the good things which this integration brings across. Within here, if I go in a little bit more into the details, just give me a minute. So the service details in itself, which is a product details service here, what happens is also we have the entry point. So usually we have a manual endpoint as an entry point, because what happens through an integration is it's not a ServiceNow discovered entity. It's something which is coming across from Dynatrace. So we have a manual endpoint, which is the entry point for that service. We have certain related CIs, which is the process group instance, the host, and the service here by itself. And we can also go in and check the affected CIs. In this case, there's a couple of the alerts which are raised, and so it shows the product details service here. If I go into the service map, you should be able to see the whole, like the relationship between all the entities. So in this case, if I go in and see the full map, you should see the entire topology here, which is. And this is all being done by the CMDB integration in the background. So now if you go back and switch back to this, and you can go into the Smartscape topology here, you should be able to see the similar relationship here, the customer API and the respective hosts. So this is coming from ServiceNow. This is coming from Dynatrace. So this is showing you a part of how the CMDB integration works in the background when an event comes in. So let's go into the details of how this specific problem, which was generated just now, will be remediated by ServiceNow. So we have created an alert management rule. within, which would go in and try to fix this specific service incident which we just got. So within the alert rule, you can see, this is the information regarding the alert filter, and the actions. So within the actions, we have the remediation subflow here. You can use workflows, which are traditional workflows within ServiceNow, but we are moving towards like Flow Designer, which is more easy to configure, more user-friendly, more no-code stuff. So more of that, which we want to actually use going forward. So if I jump into the Flow Designer, which I've kept it open here, I can also see the subflows. Now, this is a subflow which came in and which we have actually generated. So if I go in here, I can see the steps. Now, this is a very simple setup right now. We have just generated a log in the log folder as an information, which would just show me that this was an auto remediate service slowdown. And when I go into this this change service config, which is an action, and go into the details of this, you should be able to see the script which comes across, which we have again written custom for this specific action to take place, where there's a slowdown, and it brings it back to a normal, 500 milliseconds count, and it will actually get it back. The response time will become normal once this remediation is already triggered. And Wolfgang, I think you're on the background. You've already triggered this remediation, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's already automatically triggered.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So this, if we go back and go back to the operator workspace, let's see. Now we can see that the service has turned back green, and this is a good view. Let's go back to the actual service here and see the effect of that in Dynatrace as a part of this remediation. And here you can see that it's come back to its normal. The response time has come back to normal. So this is one of the ways you can actually remediate. But further going into the Flow Designer, right? I mean, within ServiceNow, you can do so many things. But this is just a very simple demo version of what we wanted to demo today in the webinar. But if you want to go in and add more stuff, so we are also devising like a Dynatrace spoke, which may come up in the future. And this is one of them, which is to create a maintenance window. So let's say you want to do this problem remediation, but you also have to get the appropriate approvals. You have to open a change request and then create a maintenance window. So maintenance window is more of a concept within Dynatrace, where what it does is it creates a maintenance window so that if you are doing maintenance on that specific host, or in this case a service, or in this case you're going to remediate a problem, you are able to suppress, as you see the suppression here, you can detect problems and alert, or you can suppress them and do not alert them based on what you're doing. Like if you're shutting down a server or a host, you don't want the alerts to go across because it's a standard maintenance or a scheduled maintenance. But in this case, if you do want to alert that, hey, there is a problem remediation happening on the background, I'm just going to let you guys know I can open up a maintenance window for this during this remediation, and then we can go for it. But there's more and more of this, as a sort of the Flow Designer, which comes with all these other features. You can add it to the Slack channel. This is another thing which we have seen in our demos with other teams, where we have any sort of problem remediation creating the incident, and the incident information comes across the Slack channel. The event information comes across the Slack channel, and you can do so many things on top of what we have built to actually make it more robust, more custom for your specific instance or for your business. And then you can keep adding more and more of this. But this is just a simple flow for our current webinar. We just want to make sure that it works and doesn't have too many problems or too many issues with the webinar in itself. I think that's about it from me. But yeah, I'll just go into the summary of what you have seen today, right? I mean, you've come in here to actually learn something. And if I go in further, what we have achieved in the demo is we have released a new feature, basically like to add problem remediation to the ServiceNow Dynatrace integration. In this case, Dynatrace detects a slowdown, then it fires a problem as a result of the slowdown, which the AI detects on the back. And then the problem is delivered across the ServiceNow, as you've seen, right? We have an incident which was open on that for that specific problem which is opened. And then you have also parallelly the events which are generated as a result of that problem. The event rule, the alert management rule, which I went in, also triggers the remediation subflow, which we saw today. Then the remediation script is executed, and the problem is remediated across in Dynatrace. With that, I hand over to Andy, and I will stop my screen share. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yep, perfect. Actually, there's a lot of questions that came in, so I probably will ask you or Wolfgang to share the screen in a moment again. I just want to quickly remind folks, thanks for all the questions we have a lot of time now to go through all of them. I already answered some of them, but I want to make sure that the rest of the audience hears them as well. Just before we go into that, as a reminder, this session has been recorded. It will be pushed later on Dynatrace University as well as on the YouTube channel. The slides will also be made available on Dynatrace University, which means if you are a Dynatrace user, you can log in and can get the slides as well. If you have questions later on for these experts, you now know their names. I'm sure you can now follow, hassle, or stalk them on social media or whatever else you find appropriate. They will be happy to answer your questions. Hopefully that's okay, Wolfgang, and
sure.
Jay, that I said this. Yeah. All right. So I start with the easy questions. The easy question first was, what was the ServiceNow version that you used in your demo?
The one which we used was Orlando, the Orlando patch 1 release. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The next question also was with the integration, the CMDB integration. Is there information about which entities from the Dynatrace Smartscape model are synced over to ServiceNow?
Sure. I mean, if you want me to screen share, I can do a screen share again.
That would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me go back. Give me a minute, and let me.
And while we're waiting for your screen share, there was a question coming in that I answered. So the question was, can we filter the events, the problems that are sent over from Dynatrace to ServiceNow? Yes, there is. There's a concept that is called alerting profiles, and this is true for any integration Dynatrace has with ServiceNow, with Slack, with Xmatters, with all these other tools as well, or just your generic webhook integration. You can define a so-called alerting profile where you can filter on the Dynatrace side which events, which problems should actually make it over to the other tool. So that was one thing. All right.
Cool. So, just in this case, if I show you the product detail service, which was the service which we invoked here, you have the services, you have the applications, the processes, the host. So for this specific integration, we do the first upper 4 layers. So that's the applications, the services, the process, and the host. We don't do the data center right now, which might happen in the future. But here, if I go back to ServiceNow, in the new Orlando version of the app, you should see all these 4 layers also in your Dynatrace menu. So if I go in and just type Dynatrace here, if you go through your menu item or your filter navigator, you should be able to see these applications here. Now, this is the business. This is like classified as business applications within ServiceNow, at least for now. But I think in the future, we're also planning to change this to an appropriate classification. Because business application is a part of ITBM, and it has other, differences from the actual traditional application or the web application or RUM applications or mobile applications, which is what we classify that as in Dynatrace. And also services, you can see all the services or the application services as they are classified in ServiceNow. This is how it comes across. So you have these 4 layers, the host, the process groups, which is again classified as an application currently due to some identification rule constraints, but we are also working on trying to make it more granular and specific. Like if you have a Tomcat application or Apache application, it should be classified as an Apache server within ServiceNow. So we are working on that, but that's in short is what we have all these 4 different entities which are integrating currently.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Another question was in your demo, was there any discovery tool run by ServiceNow to fill up the CMDB, or is all of this information you have in there coming from Dynatrace?
Currently, all of this information is coming from Dynatrace. Also, there is other, hosts and CIs which ServiceNow had loaded by default, but that's not from the ServiceNow discovery. It's more. But we have also seen customers who have both activated, so they have ServiceNow discovery as well as Dynatrace discovery, or Dynatrace bring in, or they use just ServiceNow discovery, set up a data source precedence rule within, and make sure that Dynatrace is more of an informational sort of CI information within the CMDB, and ServiceNow is the main data source they're using for all their discovery.
Perfect. Now you mentioned Orlando is the version that you're using. Is there what's the feature set for older versions?
So for older versions, the feature set is the same. So this specific app currently, which is the latest in the store, is compatible with Orlando, but it's also compatible with New York and Madrid. So you can download the same app and make it work for your older versions, so New York and Madrid. Even if you're in London, we can help you with that setup. But yeah, if you have anything, any sort of information or any sort of questions regarding the setup, you can always come back to us or send us an email and let us know, and we can definitely jump in and help you guys out. But yeah, this is Orlando compatible, but it also works for New York and Madrid.
Okay, perfect. Then there's a question about licensing. Is there any special licensing either on the Dynatrace side or on the ServiceNow side to make this integration work?
So there's multiple integrations, right? You have the ITSM, which is the CMDB and incident integration. For that, I don't think it's usually out of the box. But for ITOM, I think you need to have a license or buy a license for the ITOM module in general. And we use specifically event management within ITOM. So yeah, definitely you need a license for that, or a subscription for it, I would say, more in ServiceNow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then let's see, there's some questions. There was one question around, in the example that you showed, the problem that Dynatrace sent over. There was a negative problem ID, and I explained it with an internal problem ID and one that is kind of a human readable problem ID. And the question was just, what is this negative number? Is this something to worry about, or what does it mean? And correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I answered it is, we have internal IDs that are uniquely across all the problems, and they are just like always a large number, and they can go into either range. But this is just a problem ID that we internally keep to actually map things together on each side.
It's basically like the SYS ID on the ServiceNow side. So it identifies a problem on the Dynatrace side uniquely, and it also contains negative IDs, which is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. The next question, the scenario here is that this user is currently using Dynatrace with an email integration. That means they're sending problems from Dynatrace to email, to an email inbox, and they were wondering with the ServiceNow integration, because they see a lot of problems that are very short-lived, that are closing itself again after a couple of minutes. Is there an option to kind of avoid over-alerting, like creating too many tickets in ServiceNow if problems close itself anyway after a couple of minutes? So is there some type of mechanism in there to stop too early alerting?
I can take that. Sure. So there are two ways of handling that, depending on what you would like to see. So one way is to suppress the alerting, or to suppress the event, the generation of the event itself, for baseline events, for example, for baselining anomalies that are shorter than X minutes. You find that feature in the anomaly settings of each individual service. So you can, for example, specify that you don't want to see a slowdown event at all if it's shorter than 10 minutes, for example. That suppresses the complete problem itself and the generation of the event itself. The other way of handling it is that you accept the Dynatrace to open the problem, but to filter out alerts that are sent out that are shorter than 15 minutes, for example. And again, that you can do with an alerting profile. So the alerting profile allows you to filter out all problems that are shorter than X minutes. Can you go to that screen, probably?
Yeah, I'm showing that. So within integration, problem notifications.
It's under alerting. Sorry, it's under alerting.
Oh, this one. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Just a minute.
Here. You have to click on alerting profile.
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah. So this one is one of the examples. Critical custom alerts. You can define your severity rule here and go in and, as what Wolfgang was just explaining.
A minute. 0 minutes, it delivers it immediately, but you can specify 30 minutes, for example, then we will skip all shorter problems than 30 minutes. The result is that you still see the short spiking problems in the Dynatrace problem feed, but you don't get it by email or in ServiceNow. And you can choose what you would like to have.
As we are on the screen or in Dynatrace, one of the questions that came in, I think maybe this person joined a little late, in order to set up the integration, can you just quickly show the steps again? Problem, notification, setting up the ServiceNow integration, how easy it is?
So basically, it's a very easy setup. If you go into your problem notifications, so you go into settings, you have to go into integration and then click on problem notifications. If you get back here, you click on setup notifications and you use ServiceNow. And this is to create a new integration with ServiceNow. Since we already set it up, I'll go back to the problem notification screen and show you the existing. Now, this is the one which we have connected with our demo instance. So you can choose any name to your liking. If you have a dev instance or a prod instance or UAT, you can specify that in the display name. You can just plug in the ServiceNow identifier. You don't have to plug in the whole URL if it's a SaaS instance, but for an on-premise instance, you may have to plug in the whole URL. Then you have the username and password. Now, this is something which I have used, or we have used like admin credentials here, but in your case, you would usually create a Dynatrace user or a specific user name for this specific integration within Dynatrace. And you can, here within users in ServiceNow, you can create in the user administration. You can go into the users, create just like this DT demo admin and assign specific roles, which all of them come in a blog. But in this case, you have a specific integration user, which we are usually adding. And in this case, I don't see it, but it's called. I mean, I'll forward you more on the blog. But these are rights which we have to give to the user. And once you have set up that user in ServiceNow, you should just enter the credentials here, enter whatever description you want, like you have the problem title. So these are the available placeholders: the impacted entity, problem details, HTML, severity, title, state, whatever you want to capture in the short description within the problem or the event, and then enable these two flags. So if you have incident, you have ITSM and ITOM both, then you can enable both of them. And once this is enabled, and you can also click on whatever the alerting profile you want it to be associated with, as we just saw. Like if you don't want to generate like anything beyond 30 minutes, just select your alerting profile and then just send a test incident as you see here, and then also you can save this profile. So once it's saved, this is what you see currently. I hope this is clear.
Yeah, I think so. And also kind of follow up on if you stay here on that screen, and I'm not a ServiceNow expert, but one was asking the question if we can assign the integration to one or multiple ServiceNow groups. Or also the other question in that same area was, can we set up multiple integrations to either different ServiceNow instances or multiple integrations to the same ServiceNow instance, probably filtering out things.
Yes. So for the first question, right, the groups. So you can assign any of the instance or events which are generated if you have just ITOM and you're generating instance out of the events module. Then yes, you can assign it to multiple groups or a single group. But again, you have to either set up those. Either set up a tag for this. Let's say if you have just going back to the host. Let me take a simple host and. Let's go. It's a Linux server here. The way we have tried to make it easier would be to add a tag here. So if you add a tag with the assignment group information within Dynatrace, right, you can update it within Dynatrace here, and then you can transfer that information across. So all the tag information comes across the ServiceNow. So if I go back to Dynatrace, if I go back to the host, if I go in here, I should be able to see the tag information in the comments. So if you see here, there's demo service and app demo service. These are the two tags which you have just gotten across from Dynatrace. If you see these tags, what a lot of customers have also done is to use this to add a tag for their assignment group. So you can just go in, add the assignment group which this host belongs to, or if it has multiple assignment groups which it needs to be, or multiple people or multiple groups working on this specific host or are responsible for it, you can actually assign that. On the ServiceNow side, you can also set up assignment rules, right? I mean, that's something which comes also from within ServiceNow. You can go in and set up assignment here, the assignment rules, wherein you can go in and based on whatever, we haven't set up anything specifically as such out of the box because we want to keep it as close out of the box as possible. But if you want customizations, we are there to help you out with that. Just as an example for an incident, right? There's an assignment rule here which says that if it's an incident which is coming in, you can add more, rules here. If it's coming from Dynatrace, then you can assign it to a specific group. But this is what you would use in the ServiceNow side if you want all the information of the assignment groups on the ServiceNow side. So yeah, that's pretty much how you can do the assignment group. On the second question again, Andy, if you can repeat, was that can we connect to multiple instances of ServiceNow with the same? Yeah. Yes, you can. Yes, you can go into problem notification. You can go here, integration, problem notifications. You can create a new set of notifications where I have a new instance or the same instance with a different alerting profile. The default, you can have one just for the critical custom alerts, just for warning custom alerts. If you're going to do that, recommendation is just don't do default because default will send everything and then you'll get duplicate problems and events or alerts across in ServiceNow. So if you're doing just by alerting profile, keep it, just alerting profile. Keep multiple, but each one should have an alerting profile assigned to it because the default will include everything and you don't want to do that either, right? So just be careful when you do that. And separate instances, definitely yes. You can just enter the instance name, if it's dev or UAT or prod in here, and that would direct it to the appropriate instance across in ServiceNow.
So there's a lot of questions, and I cannot go through all of them that are asking around what needs to be installed on the ServiceNow side. What about the configuration with the mapping? So where does the correlation actually happen between a Dynatrace event and then the CI element on ServiceNow? I know there's a lot of documentation, I would assume, out there, and you mentioned the blog posts. Is there a great way to get started for folks that have questions on how do I get started with this? How do I install? What do I need to configure?
So usually if you go to the store, that's where the first step is to basically get into the store and download the Dynatrace app. So I'm going to just show you guys the Dynatrace app. So this is the integration. The Dynatrace integration is free. You can go in. You definitely need to have a licensed instance of ServiceNow. So you cannot just go and do it in a developer instance, which ServiceNow provides also, which wouldn't work for any app on the store. Once you go into the app, you'll get more information on the summary of what this integration provides, the system requirements, what are the instructions. So you can see here, you can go in and check the instructions for the initial setup. And also, once you download the app, there's more information. But here on the side, on the supporting links and documents, there's installation guide. There's also the latest Orlando enhancements are in the integration enhancements doc. So these are things which are already there. So once you download this app, right, within the app, you have if I go back, there's a support page right here. Once you download the app, you should be able to go to the support page and see the setup instructions. Now, this is how you begin, the first setup. And we also have a blog. So if you go and click on the additional details, now this is where the blog post comes up, where it gives you like a more detailed information on how to enter, how it will look like, screenshots about all this screens from ServiceNow. So yeah, this is all going to the support page. But first thing is to download it from the App Store. And for that, you do need a high credential. So when you click on Get, you do generally try to go into your high portal, and then from there you can download it to whichever instance you want. Usually you start with dev or test, or whichever instance you prefer to test it on. So this is how you first go in. And it's a certified app by ServiceNow.
Perfect. I'll give you two more questions because then we're running short on time. One that came up multiple times is if the integration is ITSM only, is Dynatrace sending the incident to the management zone? If integration is ITSM only, where does Dynatrace send the incident information to?
So Dynatrace sends the incident information across to just like a flow for how the incident integration works. We have a listener script or a scripted REST API on the ServiceNow side, and then it goes to this import set table called the problems. And from here, we actually open an incident. So if you see here, these are all the problems which are coming up from Dynatrace. And then if you click on the target record, which is an incident which is already created by Dynatrace, you can go in, you can see the Easy Travel service, in this case, the affected CI, you can see all the information here. And in terms of management zone, we don't necessarily send that information across necessarily in the incident itself. That's something on the CMDB side. So we create service groups on CMDB side, which are equivalent to management zones. But yeah, that's the classification. Let me check if I can load it up. But yeah, I can add this and I can get more details on this. But right now, the question is, if we can do, but I'll just group by class here and it should show you. So within here, this is your entire CMDB. If you go into the service groups, this is now everything coming from Dynatrace. These are the management zones, but this definitely doesn't have any relationship or anything specifically in ServiceNow. This is just information. Now you can use this information to then, pass it across from Dynatrace as a tag, as a management zone, or you can pass it across and then parse it in ServiceNow and assign it to a specific management zone if you want to do that on the incident side. But good question.
Yeah. Hey, as a last request to both of you, I know we're going to share the slides later on, and I think the slides will also contain a couple of screenshots for those that couldn't see the demo. But what I would also like to ask you, because a couple of questions come in, links to important resources, like links to docs in case I don't have access to the ServiceNow store. So if you could do me a favor, maybe come up with a list of links that you can also add to the deck.
Sure.
Once the deck is available, people download it, and then they can also see where to get started, like links to blog posts and things that is relevant for them. That would be great.
Definitely. Yeah. Noted.
Awesome. Hey, this was amazing. This was a very active audience, and I'm really sorry that we didn't get through all the questions, but I'll try to do a good enough job to cover most of those. If certain questions didn't get answered, there's always a way to reach out to us. You can go to answers.dynatrace.com. You know the names of the two presenters. I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to get a hold of them. Talk with your Dynatrace representative. We use the in-product chat feature that gets you directly to Dynatrace One. So there's a lot of options here to get in touch with our experts, and we're happy to help you. And I want to say thanks to the two of you. And
thanks a lot, Andy.
I'm pretty sure I want to have you back at some point, probably soon, because this seems a very hot topic, and I'm sure you guys have more to talk about. So, but for now, thank you and stay healthy.
Sure. Same to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.